Hi, I'm Khleif. Each and every week, I record an interview with a thought leader that I know you're going to get a ton of value from. Now, here on YouTube are the video versions of my podcast, Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. Now, to make sure you get the latest information, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let's get started. Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Khleif, and I'm thrilled you're here. I know you're going to get tremendous value from the dynamic woman that we're interviewing today. Her name is Monick Halm, and she's been in real estate for over 14 years. She's done over 1,200 doors in quite a few different asset classes, mobile home parks, RV parks, primarily multifamily. She is a big advocate for women, and just delighted to have her on the show. Welcome, Monick.
Thank you so much for having me, Rod.
Absolutely. So let's start out with your story a little bit. Tell my listeners a little bit about your story and, how you got into real estate and why you love real estate. And
Sure. Yeah. So I got into real estate almost entirely by accident. I knew nothing about real estate investing. I had great parents who meant well for me, but they taught me I could be anything I want, but in parentheses was as long as I was a doctor, lawyer, professor, engineer, right? Like that's what success was to them.
Wow.
And I was a good student, dutiful daughter. I ended up going to college and law school. Law school was the route I chose. And I went to Columbia, and then I got into a big firm, and I was miserable, but that's
so you're a JD. You're a JD as well.
I am a JD.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Very impressive.
So I hated law, and I found myself pretty miserable. At one point my appendix ruptured. I ended up in the ER. And when the doctor told me that I'd have to stay in the hospital for at least a few days and I'd be at home at least 30 days after to recover, my first thought was, oh, thank God I don't have to go to work. I was just so grateful to not have to go to the office. But I'd done all the right things. So I should have been deliriously happy, except I was miserable. And part of my journey into real estate was trying to find a way to do something that I love better. But I ended up buying my first property, my first rental property. Also was I became an accidental investor too, because all I ever learned about real estate was buy your own home. That was all I was taught. And so I went to buy a home, and this was in LA, 2005, towards the top of the last bubble. And the average price was $600,000, $700,000 for a decent house in a, just okay neighborhood. Even though I had a 6-figure salary, I couldn't do that by myself. So a friend of mine said, well, why don't we buy a duplex together? You live on one side, I live on the other. And we ended up buying a property, though, that one side was much nicer than the other. So we each took a bedroom in that place. And then we ended up renting out the other unit. There was a converted garage we were able to rent out. We rented out our basement, and we did house hacking before I knew that was a thing. And I was like, this is awesome. Right? This is cool. Right. And then when I met my husband, he had a duplex, and we got a single family house together. When the crash happened and houses were on sale, we started flipping. We flipped some houses in LA, and we were doing that until about 2015, when the margins weren't making as much sense. And we thought, okay, well, let's do buy and hold, and we'll look for a fourplex in LA. We couldn't find anything that made any financial sense. And at that time, I was introduced to Robert Helms of the Real Estate Guys Radio through a mutual friend. And Robert, in one 10-minute conversation with Robert, he busted a couple of huge paradigms for me that changed everything, and then really got us from having a couple rental doors to getting over 1,000 in 1 year. So the first thing he told me, because he was asking what I was up to, I told him about the flipping and how we were looking for the fourplex in LA and we couldn't find anything. And he said, I always say, he goes, LA's a tough market. I always say, live where you want to live, invest where the numbers make sense. And I went, I'd never thought of that. I always thought you had to invest where you could drive to your property, touch it. I never think it's so obvious after you hear that.
Right.
But at the time, I always thought you just
a good guy.
best where you live. Yeah, he is. And then the next thing he said was, and you can get that fourplex by yourself, but you're limited to your own capital and credit. He said, alternatively, you could bring a group of investors together and you could get a 100 or 200 unit apartment building. And that just blew my mind, because I thought you need Donald Trump's bank account for that kind of thing. I didn't realize regular people could do that. So I decided right then and there, like, that's what I wanted to do. And nice. So that's what we went to learn how to do that. And we invested a lot of time and money, but in about a year, we were able to get into over 1,000 units by, collaborating with others and bring groups of investors together.
Nice. Yeah. Sometimes it's just a little tiny tip that can make all the difference in the world. It's funny. I just had my Multifamily Mastermind boardroom in San Diego recently, and we had, we have about $4 billion in assets represented in that group. And,
wow.
And it's just and there were people there that are very, very successful, and watching them have epiphany moments was kind of mind blowing. We're like, my God, why didn't I think of that? And, here's a guy with, 3,000 doors having an epiphany. And, sometimes it's just that little tweak. That's all you need. So that's cool that Robert helped you with that.
Total game changing. And that's sometimes it's like, you're right. It's like, and that's the beauty of masterminds too.
Right. No, that's why I did it. I did the first version here at my house, and I was just so blown away by the distinctions. I'm like, man, I've got to formalize this. Now it's turned into, really the largest multifamily mastermind, really, I think, on the planet. But it's just incredible, I'll land the plane on this. But the key with a mastermind is people have to go to give, not just to get. And that's what makes it such an incredible environment. But, all it takes, like I say, is that one little tip, made you millions of dollars. And that's what's so amazing about mentors and masterminds. And so let's I know you're the queen or the goddess rather of relationships. I know you've got a podcast called Real Estate Investor Goddesses. Very cool. I love the name. But I know that you're very relationship driven. So talk about how my listeners are aspiring real estate investors. They know they want to get into multifamily, or they already are. Talk about how you build great relationships.
Yeah. So relationship, I think, real estate is such a people business, right? It's all about the teams and the people you work with. And I have very much of a people first philosophy when it comes to real estate investing. And one of the things that I've learned is, and I learned this through this genius woman, Beth Clifford, who's developer's done billions of dollars in developments and has built lots of teams and lots of companies. And one thing I learned from her is something called the 3 C's, which I always follow when I'm looking to work with somebody or thinking about working with somebody. So the first C, which is, and this is in order of importance, but they're all very important. So the first C is character. Right. So what is somebody's character like? This is not something you can teach. This is not something you can change. So you really observing, what are they like? Who are they like? What are they like with everybody that they're interacting with? Right. Not just people they think are important. How do they show up? What's their integrity like? And so I look a lot at character. The next thing is their commitment. So what is their commitment? Their commitment to the project, their commitment to your shared mission, vision, values, right? So, just thinking about a construction, somebody who you're going to hire.
Can I slow you? I want to slow you down just a little bit, if you don't mind. So I want to go back to character for 1 second, because that's such a critical component. And then I want to get back to commitment. But back in character, there's something called intuition.
Yes.
And people think, oh, that's foofy and airy-fairy. And I'm here to tell you, it has saved my butt more than once. And I tell the story, I was hiring a COO, very high-level position for one of my companies. And I usually try to go to dinner with someone. If it's a really high-level hire, I try to break bread with them, maybe have a drink with them, get to know them. And I noticed one little slight thing in the way that he treated the waiter. It was really minor. It wasn't like dramatic or anything. It was just a tiny little thing that was a little bit of aloofness. I'm like, And I was ready to hire him that night. I'd already done a lot of due diligence. He had told me not to call one of his references, he said, because the guy had cancer. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to bother that guy. But then I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to call him. The guy didn't have cancer, and this guy had stolen from him. So when it comes to character, guys, those of you listening, don't underestimate the power of your intuition. Trust it. If your gut doesn't feel right, trust it. Okay. I just want to circle back on that, but back to commitment for a minute. How do you evaluate that C? Tell me what you do to evaluate commitment.
Yeah. So a couple of things. For me, I have a big commitment to leaving a property and a community better than I found it.
Okay.
Right. So it's very important to me that the people I work with have that same commitment. So it's not about getting every dollar out of the deal. It's not about being a slumlord. It's really about what's their commitment to improving to helping, right? So that's the part of the commitment. Another way I look at it is, what is their commitment to showing up and being there? So you're hiring somebody to do a GC, right? A contractor. If they're not committed to being there when you need them to be there, right? Like they have a bunch of other projects and they're not really fully committed to your project, that's not going to work. So it's committed in a very practical way. So actually being there and showing up and being able to do what they say they're going to do. And it's also committed in the sense of our bigger vision and mission and values.
Okay.
So that's what I look
for. You communicate your mission and vision and values then.
I do.
And see if you get buy-in. Okay. Mm-hmm. Love it. Yeah. What's the third C?
And the third C is capacity. So that is, are they actually able to do the thing that they're supposed to be doing, right? So I've learned the hard way that you don't always want to go with the cheapest person. It's really, and I've learned that the best won't cost you money, they'll make you money, right? Working with the best. So I look for that capacity and hope, and to the extent I can, that they're outstanding at what they do and that they're the best. So those are the 3 C's that I look for, and I look to work with people like that. And when I've not done that, it's not worked out very well. But when I do that, we knock it out of the park.
Love it. Those are very insightful. Love it. And it may be a team fit again, but if they don't have the bandwidth, it's not going to happen. So let's shift gears. This is kind of an abrupt shift, but let's talk a little bit about market selection, because we had chatted about that before we started recording. What to look for in a market, because you came to the realization it's not going to be in LA, certainly not today. The prices are stupid. And so, in fact, I've got a coach, I've got coaching clients and they're called warriors. I've got a warrior group that does a meetup in LA, and it's called the Out of State Real Estate Investors Meetup, because it is just not going to happen in LA. So what do you do to look for a market?
All right. So I look for a bunch of different factors. Seven main things that I look for. I'll try to remember them all. So the first thing I look at is their job and population growth, right? So I look at, are people coming there? Or are they going? Are they coming? So I look for job and population growth. I look for landlord friendliness. And business friendliness. So, when you own property, you are a landlord and you are a business.
All right, if you don't mind, I'm just going to stop you as you do this. Forgive me. Job and population growth. What websites do you like for that? I can share mine if you need to regroup. But
yeah, sure. So there are a couple of things I look at. I look at the U-Hauls, like where the U-Hauls going. All right, the one-way U-Hauls, because that's
where do you find that information?
You Google. I just have Googled it. It's like
all right.
One-way U-Hauls will show you that.
Fascinating. That's a great idea.
That's a good hack, right? For finding out population. There's I also look at, I Google lists like, where's who's gotten the most population growth this year, like
Okay.
job growth. You see lists
Okay.
like that.
Let me share a couple. Let me share a couple we use that we find
Mhm.
for population and
Yeah.
growth. One of them is bestplaces.net. That one does a
Mm,
really nice job. And another one is city-data.com. And you can
love
drive
that.
right down to a
Yeah.
neighborhood to see if it's been growing over a period of time. So if those
Yeah.
of you listening, write those down as well. I love the U-Haul hack. That's awesome.
Yeah. If
That's
you
real
know
time.
which city in particular, which market, then yeah, city data is great.
Mhm.
Another really great, a wonderful way to get information about a particular city, like once you've identified that city,
Mhm.
is you just do the city. You can do Detroit, Michigan, CAFR, and put that in the Google. I'm blanking on what CAFR means. It's basically it's the city's financial report.
Oh, wow.
Um, and it's mandated by law. It's called the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
Hmm.
It's mandated by law. The federal government requires it, and it's basically the city's report card, financial report card, and it shares, the employers. It shares the population, what's been going on over time. It shares how the city's finances are. It shares, like it's a several hundred-page report, and it
Wow.
has all sorts of data about a particular city.
Love it.
Yeah, so
Love it. Great.
and you just Google, Los Angeles, California, CAFR,
Love
and
it.
it'll come up. Pretty much every city will have one. Um, so that's a good place to get. I mean, it's dense, but
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
not
No,
like
it sounds
lighting
like
reading. But
sounds like heavy reading, but a lot of these statistics are statistics. I mean,
yeah,
sometimes make me want to blow my brains out when I read this stuff. But it is important. But like you said,
yes,
the big ones are job growth, population growth, and then
population growth. And then speaking of mastermind, something that I got recently at a mastermind. And this is something from city-data.com that you can look at. So you'll see if you scroll down, there's a crime list, and
mm-hmm.
going over the past 14 years. So somebody said that this is what he looks at. He looks at the trends, and if over the past 14 years it's gone down, 200 or more points, and also if it's a 5 at the current year, it's 500 or less.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have, it's just going to be a better community, safer community, especially with the trends. Like you tend to be getting more educated people, better tenants. So, and he
Yes,
found
Neil,
that
Neil does a
particular,
very good job with that.
is that Neil? Yeah, Neil.
That's Neil. Yeah,
Neil.
I actually had
Yeah.
Neil. I had Neil at my mastermind. He does a
I,
wonderful job with
I
neighborhood
was,
selection.
yeah,
Yeah,
I was at a
Neil.
mastermind when he said that, and I was like,
Yep.
genius.
Yeah,
So,
that's Neil.
yeah,
Neil
Neil
Bauer is
Bauer.
a good friend. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
that was his
yep.
little hack. So
Mhm.
that hadn't been part of my 7 before, but it is now. I
Yep.
also, when you're looking, so then the next thing is, when you find the job and population growth, the landlord and business friendliness,
Mhm.
coming from LA, where could take you 9 months to
Get somebody
evict
out.
somebody, or my poor cousin, she had a tenant in a place in DC. Took her over 3 years
Oh.
to evict this woman.
Ugh.
Or like compared
I
to
had the
Dallas,
same
where
thing
it'll
in
take 3
Memphis.
weeks.
I had the same thing in Memphis. Thank God they've changed it there. But yeah, no. Yeah.
Yeah,
So very good point. Very good point. Yeah.
yeah. Then you want to look at the economy, right? So you want the diversified economy, not just
Diversified employers.
and
Yes.
diversified employers and
Yeah.
industries,
Yes.
right?
In industries.
So
Yep.
you don't want that one factory town, and you also
Mhm.
don't want like a all steel town or all coal town or all whatever
Yep.
town. You want a town that's like diverse in terms of industries and diverse in terms of employers. Let's see, what else do I
That's good.
look
That's good.
for?
Income growth. Right.
Income growth. I
Mhm.
look at familiarity, actually, is a big thing that I look at. Not just, that there has to be somebody. Ideally, it's my own, but it's not always my own, but at least somebody on the team that's very trusted, that is incredibly familiar with the market, because there's so, because you have to be in the right sub-market. So it's not just the market, but then that's the other part.
Sure. And where's the
sub-market.
path of progress? How do you figure that out? And
Yes.
and
So,
typically people that either live there, unless you develop really good relationships, it's really tough to find that out. No,
yeah.
that's very good. I tell my students, ideally, to select a market from one of four places, either their backyard, which I say is a 2-hour drive around them, a place they grew up or spent some time. So then they're familiar with it, that familiarity. The third would be a place they have boots on the ground, like you said, just like you said. And then the fourth really doesn't apply to familiarity, but it's just a place they'd like to visit or maybe even retire. So those I like to suggest as the first four options. But love it.
Those are great. Yeah. And then you want to be in the right market cycle for the asset class that you're doing, right? So is it a rising market? Is it boom? Is it a downturn, or stabilized? And for the asset class that you are investing in, you want to be in that right submarket. I mean, the right market cycle.
Sure. Or be prepared to kiss 100 frogs to find a deal. Which is kind of where we are in the multifamily space right now.
Yes, because it's booming almost pretty much everywhere. So, all the markets that make sense, it's challenging in the multifamily space right now.
Well, I know that you're also a big proponent in mindset. So why don't you give us and as am I. So I'm really excited about this part of our interview. So tell me a little bit about how you feel about mindset and just some of your distinctions and wisdom in that area.
So one of the things that I've noticed when it comes to different investors and people who are successful, who have otherwise the same resources, otherwise, the same opportunities, but some are, become very successful and others don't, or they stay still, they stall. I think so much of it has to do with their mindset. It has to do with what their beliefs about themselves and their ability to succeed, their beliefs about money, their beliefs about what it means to have wealth, their beliefs about the market. It's so much about these beliefs. So a lot of success is really finding the limiting beliefs that you have and being able to move beyond them so that you can take action.
Love it. And I actually do a piece on this in my live events. I just love the fact that you identified the most common ones. And sometimes people don't feel like they deserve the money. To drill down on these different topics, certainly the belief about themselves, limiting beliefs, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve it. And I had a huge one. My big one was, how can I show them I'm good enough? And that drove me for years and cost me my first family, frankly, limiting beliefs. And there's a reason belief systems, the acronym is BS, because most of them have no basis in fact, but because we had some emotional event that we put a lot of energy towards, we believe in our minds subconsciously that they're real and they're not. And that's my biggest struggle with my students as well, is to get them past that. But I love that you brought up the money one, because that one, fear of failure, fear of humiliation, fear of rejection, all that stuff comes in. But the one about money is profound, because, some people, they have this, they're in this box and they feel like they only deserve so much, and you really are only going to make what you believe you deserve. And and we're so limited, in our view of money. Like maybe, our parents said money doesn't grow on trees, or, and we have these things that are drilled into us when we're adolescents. So that was awesome. Yeah. And
so much.
Market too. Yeah. I'm sorry. Forgive me. What did you say as response?
I missed your last thing too, but I was going to say, if people have these beliefs about the wealthy, right? What it is to be, rich people are greedy, or they're selfish, or they're, they lack integrity. They're bad people, right? So if people have that, like, the 1% or the wealthy, then you're not. People would rather, they think of themselves as good people, and they're not selfish, and they're not greedy, and they're not bad people. So if wealthy are bad people and I'm not a bad person, then I can't be, so they're just not going to take the steps to be wealthy, or to to grow and to create, to do these things they need to do. So,
Right?
when
They
we talk about
create a
real estate,
story. It's really a
yeah.
story. And stories are softeners, so they don't feel bad about themselves. So they use, that's an example of a story. Is to separate like that. That's one, one dynamic as it relates to that. But no, I love it, love it, love it, love it. Now, I know you have this cool that relates to women, and it's the acronym is WEALTHY. Can
Yeah.
you speak to what WEALTHY stands for in your world?
Yeah. So this is what I think is the formula for building wealth through real estate for women.
Love it.
Although a lot of it, like 95% of it will apply to men too.
Okay.
But the W part of wealthy stands for womanly. So how do you do this? 'Cause you may have noticed that women and men think a little differently a lot of times. It's more than just our
ask John Gray. Just ask John Gray. Women are from Mars and we're from a different planet. Yep.
Yeah, it's on a chromosomal level, right? We're different, and we approach investing differently, wealth differently, money differently, and relationships differently. So if you can invest in a way that that most is in alignment with as a woman, then that helps. But basically, and that part, partly it's about mindset. Partly it's about intuition, right? Like tapping into our women's intuition, but intuition is really for everybody as well.
Sure.
Like you were saying, you relied on your intuition. For women, it's really actually very important to be in sisterhood. There's something that's, we release positive pheromones and hormones in our brain when we're around other groups of women, learn better. So that sisterhood piece is very important for women as well. And pleasure is actually the very important. So, the masculine ways to kind of push through, muscle through, no pain, no gain. It's more masculine. For women, we actually do much better if we pleasure through.
Love it.
And using that. So that's the W. E has to do with education. With you, this is why you teach real estate investing, right?
I love it.
Yeah. And it's so important to get educated. It's, a lot of people think, oh, well, it's so common sense, right? You buy a property, you put in a tenant, you get a rent. Like, it's obvious, right? What do you need to learn? There's a lot to know, and what you don't know
never stops. I mean, that's why I did the mastermind, so I could be around people at another level. That education never stops, right? Love it.
Yeah, and that it's crucial, and not only do you, as you get educated, do you learn what not to do. But the more I've been educated, the more I've learned all the opportunities that are out there that I couldn't even see before. When I learned about syndication, I could bring groups of it. It's like, that's a thing? You can do that? So that, just whenever you get that new piece of education allows you to go further and further. Assets, A is for assets. So partly it's knowing all of the different ways in which you can play in real estate. A lot of people know about single family and they know about multifamily, but there's a whole universe of other types of real estate investments. And there are a lot of different strategies too. So you can buy and hold. That's one strategy. People know about that. They know about flipping. But then there are all of these different from, notes and liens and, wholesaling and taking a piece of property and dividing it, using it in different ways. So there are all these different strategies that you can use across asset classes. And lastly, that's asset protection. So buying a property is one thing, but we live in a very litigious society. So you need to be able to.
Says the JD.
Well, yeah, the JD who's been sued over a dog bite. My dog bit somebody, and I got sued for $1.2 million.
Oh, good God.
So things happen, and so you want to be able to structure your assets so that you keep them. Knowing how to buy them and entities and insurance and finance and using business credit. So that's assets. L is location. So we talked about what you look for in a market, but what are the top 3 rules of real estate? 1, location; 2, location; 3.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So location is crucial. T is team. Team. Real estate's a team sport.
Especially commercial real estate, as you discovered from Robert. If you're in the 4 and under units, you're in residential, they're going to look at you. If you're 5+, they're going to look at the team. Very important. Love it.
But even in the 1 to 4, right? You need the agent,
Oh, sure, sure.
you need your maintenance guy, you need insurance, you need a CPA, and right? Like you need a
Yep.
team.
Yep.
H is how do you pay, right? So there are a
Is
lot of
what?
different
I'm
ways.
sorry, could you repeat that?
It's how you pay.
How you pay. Okay.
Yeah, that one's it's a little stretch in the with wealthy. It's the money part. It's like there's no M in wealthy.
All right.
Like it's how you pay.
Show
Right?
me the money. So how you pay is show me the money.
Yeah, but how do you? Because you can do it right. So there's all cash, there's self financing, there's all different types of lending, conventional lending, hard money lending, private lending.
Oh, okay.
There's
This is deal structure, how you put the money together. Got it.
how do you pay? How you can be creative about that. There's not just one way to do it, and you can mix and match. And so but if you don't know what the universe of different ways of funding your project might be, then you get stuck, right? And lastly is the why is you. How do you do this in a way that is a fit for you? Because real estate investing is not one size fits all. So how do you put together everything you've learned so that you are going towards your goals, you are playing in this game in a way that is a fit for you, and you can be, put in that creativity and have fun. So you're not only is it getting you towards your goals, but you're enjoying yourself along the way, and coming up with a plan that makes sense for you. So that's the formula. Wealthy.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Awesome. 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 So let me ask you the question that I like to ask when I'm nearing the end of an interview, which is, if you could tell I know you're still 19, but let's pretend you're not. If you could tell your 19-year-old self, if you could tell your 19 or 21-year-old self, how to maybe do things differently, would you do things differently as it relates to real estate? What might you tell that younger version of yourself with what you know now?
So I would tell my 19-year-old self, real estate investing is this thing that you can do. Right?
It's the bomb.
You've been taught that you need to trade your time for money. You need to get a job, but you don't have to. You can start investing, and you can make your money work for you. And so that will get you freedom. So I would have told her to learn about real estate investing and to get into the game.
Do it. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much, Monique. You've been such a treat. I really appreciate you being on the show, and I look forward to getting to know each other better. I'm so glad that Michelle Bosch, Jack Bosch's wife, my friend, both friends, introduced us, because I'm really pleased to have met you. And thank you for bringing value to my show. And I look forward to chatting again soon.
Me too. Thanks so much, Rod.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you listen to podcasts, join me on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to those podcasts. Just search for Lifetime Cash Flow through real estate investing.